Aditi, welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's game day. I know that you're probably as excited about this as anyone because your affiliation with both of these teams. You're the perfect person to talk to about this game. How do you see it?
I appreciate that. I think that these are two teams that are desperate for a win. And it feels a little bit silly to say that 3 games in, but you've got a Browns team that needs to rectify some significant errors, right? Like they've not played badly, but they've been burned by mistakes. They've got to clean that up. They have to fix that. This is a defense that wants to be a number one defense and yet has these communication issues. So you need to sort of clean that up. You need to show that you're not the old Browns. You've got the biggest stage possible. We all talked about this on Tuesday. And then you've got the Steelers that are desperately trying to find some sort of offensive identity. And there's a whole lot of Michigas going on. And this may sound a little bit familiar to you, but the wide receivers, especially the rookie wide receiver, George Pickens, was saying in Pittsburgh that, receivers are open. But as you all know, a receiver seeming to be open doesn't necessarily mean that the receiver is where he is supposed to be, when he is supposed to be there. Yeah. And the last successful offensive coordinator that was in the city, Todd Haley, was in fact on the radio in Pittsburgh yesterday saying, well, I think the receivers are running a little sloppy. So you've got a Steelers offense that's trying to figure out who it is and generate something. You've got a Steelers defense that's missing one of its game breakers in TJ Watt, but still has 2 elite players in Cam Hayward and Minka Fitzpatrick and a whole bunch of other players that they think are worthy of high potential. And you've got this enormous stage and a rivalry game and a division game. So let's go. Right?
Yeah. Aditi, it's funny because I've been such a big Myles Garrett guy, and I was really disappointed in not only his play last week, but his comments after the game. And I'm hoping he'll do his talking on the field this week. But and I've always said, I think he's the most talented player. But the truth is, and maybe it's just because the Bengals' offensive line is a mess right now, but in the last 2 weeks, I saw T.J. Watt individually wreak havoc against the Bengals' offense. I know Minka Fitzpatrick made a couple big plays. T.J. Watt made that whole thing go. He was crushing the Bengals. And then Micah Parsons did the same thing last week. He was all over the place. And those guys make impact all the time. And Myles Garrett doesn't do that to that level of those 2 guys. And I think I'm finally dealing with the reality of that. I think he's capable of it. But he does not dominate games like those 2 guys do, I think. Is that unfair?
I think it speaks to a relentlessness. And I think that's that intangible piece that some coaches and some scouts like to talk about. It's why the undersized guy is so effective. It's why the guy who doesn't necessarily look like, go to the NBA, look at a guy like Muggsy Bogues. How does Muggsy Bogues, how does Spud Webb, how do they have the careers that they have in the NBA? It's about something else. And I think the piece with Myles Garrett is that we keep hearing this year, that's where he's taken that step, where he's not going to disappear, where he wants that consistency. Robert Saleh must have said it 8 times to us last week that this is a man on a mission. This is a man. Myles Garrett is somebody who clearly wants to be the defensive player of the year. Well, I think if you want to be that, you don't get to disappear in games. And even if 4 hands are on you at all times, which is what the Jets essentially laid out as their focus and basically did on Sunday, you've still got to figure out some way to make that go. And I think that Jadeveon Clowney not playing, of course, is a big deal. They love to call themselves Batman and Robin. This is the game of football. It's about puzzle pieces. It's what attention can be drawn elsewhere. But look, people said that TJ Watt wasn't going to be anything without Bud Dupree. And without Bud Dupree, TJ Watt won Defensive Player of the Year. So I think it's fair what you're saying. And I think that Browns defensive coordinator Joe Woods has said that too, that it's fair. If Myles Garrett's goal is to be the best defensive player in the NFL, then go ahead and hold him to that standard.
Yes.
And say, we want to see you wreck a game. Be a game wrecker.
Well, fans
I think
did
it's fair.
Fans did hold him to that standard Sunday, and he didn't like it very well. Let me ask you this. I'm looking at a report from Heavy.com that says Ndamukong Suh wants to sign with a contender, and that there are 3 to 5 teams that are expressing interest, and one of those teams is the Cleveland Browns. I know that Clowney and Sue aren't exactly in the primes of their career. But what do you know about that? Does that sound like something that, from what you've heard, the Browns would be interested in doing? And if so, how does he change this defense?
Jay, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of over this whole how old you are thing. How old is Joe Flacco? What did Joe Flacco just
Well,
do?
it is a factor, though, sometimes. Sometimes
Fair.
age is a factor, so it's fair to bring it up.
Of course. No, that's definitely fair. But you know what? If your goal is to win right now, then you don't need a guy that's going to give you 10 years.
No,
you need a guy who's going to give you something right now.
Right.
And when we talk about a defense that has had communication errors, when we talk about a defense that needs to kind of clean up something that's incredibly simple, sometimes it's that veteran in the room that kicks your butt that makes sure that that happens.
And he's got that fire,
it's a
too.
personality in there. Yeah, and let's be honest, as much as we talk about Myles Garrett, being that leader does not necessarily come naturally to him. He's been very honest in saying that he felt that there was a void left when Baker Mayfield and his personality was out of the building, when Jarvis Landry and his personality was out of the building. And Myles Garrett, to his credit, has made an effort to be more present, to be more around, to stop, as he put it to me, stop being a mystery to his teammates. I mean, his teammates have talked about how great he is on the 2-square court in their locker room. So Myles is making an effort, but that's not necessarily who Myles is. It's not who Nick Chubb is. So when you think about guys that you can bring in, sometimes it's not just about how young their legs are. Sometimes it's something else that they're bringing to the table. Sometimes it's that intangible quality. And so I think if Sue is interested, and if Sue still has something left, and if you think that Sue can be a presence in your locker room that counts for something, then of course you kick the tires on that. Because again, this is a team that is constructed to win right now. This is not a team that's sitting here and saying, all right, whatever, we're going to punt on this year and wait until Deshaun Watson shows up next year.
Yeah.
Didi, what are the chances that Kenny Pickett makes an appearance tonight? Is there any chance that they would make that move if Mitch struggles again?
I think if Mitch gets hurt, I think that's it. Yeah, the Steelers are riding with Mitch Trubisky right now. There's no reason that they shouldn't be. And this is, again, look, guys, you just saw this last week, right? The Jets come into Cleveland, and Joe Flacco is the scapegoat. And as much as his head coach says, whoa, 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 this isn't all on Joe, the media, the fans, you even had NFL pundits, quote unquote pundits, saying maybe Mike White should play. And because we have the benefit of having these private conversations with the coaches, we knew that internally the Jets were not at all even remotely considering Mike White. Mike White did not take any extra snaps last week in preparation. This is a team that believed in Joe Flacco. And then what did Joe Flacco do? It was Joe Flacco walking up that Jets sideline saying, guys, we still have time left. Guys, we still have time left. It was Joe Flacco engineering those 2 touchdown drives in the last minute 55. It was Joe Flacco engineering a win that could be such a catalyst for a young Jets team. And meanwhile, the outside world was saying, oh, Joe Flacco can't do it. So the parallel here is that you've got a lot of people in the outside world pointing fingers at Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky is not the problem with the Steelers offense right now. It's just not. The Steelers should try to run the ball with a little bit of authority, run the way Nick Chubb runs the ball, run the way Kareem Hunt runs the ball. I know that that's way easier said than done. I'm sure Mike Tomlin would love to have the Browns offensive line and Nick Chubb, even Kareem Hunt, if that was the only one he had, whatever. But the Steelers have a lot more offensive issues than Mentor, Ohio's Mitch Trubisky.
So then is Matt Canada in trouble?
I don't know. God, you know what? It's funny because I was talking to somebody who's on another team around the league in a front office today about Matt Canada. And of course, you know, Matt Canada had one great year as the Pitt offensive coordinator, which of course happened in the Steelers' backyard. Matt Canada was instrumental in helping Mike Tomlin's son get a scholarship at Maryland. So there are ties there. But again, there are many great traits about Mike Tomlin. I am not going to join the chorus of questioning the coach that Mike Tomlin is. But one thing that I do think is fair to bring up when you talk about Mike Tomlin, it's his coaching tree. And who has Mike Tomlin hired that has then gone on to great success? You know, Mike Tomlin had Bruce Arians on his staff, basically ran Bruce Arians out to replace him with Todd Haley, and then Bruce Arians became a head coach. But who else has left Mike Tomlin to go on to be a coordinator, to go on to be a head coach? It's just one of those things that you sit here. Who was Mike Tomlin's last offensive coordinator that he hired? Randy Fichtner. That didn't work out so well. Todd Haley was a successful offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, but that was essentially forced upon Mike Tomlin by the Rooney family. So, again, I don't know. I truly don't know. I think that there are very, very valid questions as to whether Matt Canada is the right fit here, is the right offensive coordinator. But I also know that the Steelers don't fire people midstream. That's not the way that Mike Tomlin operates. So I don't know that he's on the hot seat. I also think it's a little bit silly. We're 2 games in.
Right.
We're 2 games in.
That's true.
And nobody's run away with the division just yet. So you do have an opportunity to turn things around.
Yeah,
and
nobody's
I think
playing
it is fair.
well in the division.
Hell, they're tied for first, except Cincinnati.
Yeah, nobody's playing
Well,
well.
since you talk about Canada, let's you should go over here to the defense. What are your thoughts on Joe Woods?
Same thing. Scapegoating, I think, a little bit. I like Joe Woods a lot. I think that Joe Woods is a very good teacher. I think that Joe Woods designs things well. And I think that, you don't need me to say this. I think everybody said this. I think Tyvis Powell said it really well as well. This is as simple as communication. And I can't, guys, I've said this so much. I really apologize if I said this on Tuesday. I can't remember if I said it on the radio in Pittsburgh, if I said it on our show on Tuesday. But this is a defensive secondary that really prides itself on how well it knows each other. And as you know, I was in Berea all camp. And whether it was John Johnson or Grant Delpit or Denzel Ward, every single one of them was telling me how well they communicate, how big of a deal it is that they're in year 2 together, that there aren't new pieces, that Greg Newsome is in year 2, that Grant Delpit got so much time, that Denzel, John Johnson, that all these guys have been together, that MJ Emerson is so in his books and is seamlessly fitting in. And everybody keeps saying that knowing each other, knowing what we're thinking, knowing what we want to do is a big deal. Okay, fine, but sometimes you just need to say it.
It's ridiculous.
And you might assume that this is what Denzel Ward is playing. You might assume that this is what Greg Newsome is doing, but it takes exactly 3 seconds to say, hey guys, this is what we're running. Hey guys, this is what I see. Just get on the same page. Just confirm it. And I said this earlier in the week. Last year, that Bengals secondary was playing so well. And Jesse Bates, the safety, said to me, if you don't see us talking to each other, we're in trouble. Like that Bengals secondary, every single Tuesday, which is supposed to be a player's day off, was coming into the building, players only, watching film together, eating chicken, and just talking. Hey, this is what I see. This is what the corners see. Okay, the safeties are saying, if you do this, this would help us. Over communicating. And despite that, you still saw them talking on the field every Sunday, non-stop. So why aren't the Browns just talking? It's that simple. Just run out on the field and say, okay, this is what I see.
Well, it better happen this week.
Let's see if that cleans that up.
It better happen this week. By the way,
they'll be paying attention, right? Just watch their mouths. Do you see their mouths moving?
Yeah.
It's
by
that
the way,
simple. Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead. Finish up what you're saying.
No. I just was saying that these are unbelievably talented, athletic, wonderful guys. They're not getting beat. I mean, sometimes you get beat. That's the nature of the game. But you're not regularly seeing them being shaken or being beat. You're seeing blown coverages. Blown coverages are about communication, period.
And
that's all that it is.
To me, it's even worse, though, because they have the talent. There's no excuse for this. A lack of, like, if you don't have the talent, that's at least an excuse. What am I going to do? I'm not good enough.
In Carolina, you thought it would have been cleaned up.
Yeah,
it's happened
like,
2 weeks in a row now.
If this doesn't get cleaned up by this
but you know
week,
what, Jay? Sometimes that's the hubris of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you win, so you don't take it as seriously as you possibly should. Until you lose. And you hate that. Because, again, it's twice. It's a trend. It's not just, okay, a one-off. Agreed. But, it happens in the preseason. You're like, it's the preseason. We'll clean it up. It happens in a game, but you still win. You're kind of like, oh, well, we won. Okay.
Now you felt the pain.
Lost. Now it cost you a game.
Yeah.
So now you can't brush it off.
Do you have a sense how this one plays out? Do you feel like one team is going to fix their woes over the other tonight?
I just think that the Browns' issues are more fixable. I think that the Steelers have deeper issues, have some bigger problems. I think that we've seen the Browns do what they need to do and then not do it. But again, as we're saying, it's sort of fixable. So we know how talented the Browns are. And lost in all of this, by the way, also is how well, until that last interception, Jacoby Brissett played, and the connection that he and Amari Cooper had. And this is now 2 games in a row that Amari Cooper has been uncoverable. I mean, you just can't cover him.
Right.
So I think all of that bodes well for the Browns. The only caveat with the Steelers is Mike Tomlin. Yeah. The Steelers come up with, I mean, look, the Steelers didn't play run defense worth 2 cents all of last year. They had one game in Cleveland that their run defense needed to show up, and it did. And I get it. Nick Chubb was coming off injury. He wasn't 100%. But the Steelers played a black and blue game when they needed to play a black and blue game last year, and they beat the Browns, when arguably they had no business beating the Browns. So I think that that's just sort of the idea of a rivalry game. That's what the AFC North is. It takes me all those years back to when the Steelers needed a win in Baltimore to make the playoffs. The Ravens were like a 3-win team, and Ryan Mallett and the Ravens beat the Steelers. That's what the AFC North is. So I think all signs say that the Browns right now are a better team, that the Browns are at home, that the Browns have this major moment to rectify what happened on Sunday. The Browns, in theory, should be favored in this game. But this is what the AFC North is. This is what the Steelers are. This is what a rivalry is.
Yeah, you're right.
And to your point, the Steelers have won 60% of their AFC North games that they were an underdog in. 60% of them that they were an underdog since 2007. So
that's what Tomlin does.
Yeah.
Aditi, thank you.
Again, it's certain, it's like go back to that Ravens game on Sunday where they lose a lead, where they just kind of fall apart.
Oh.
And that to me was so jarring because I can't tell you another time that a John Harbaugh team did that. It's just the nature of the Ravens. Sometimes the Ravens don't have enough bodies. Sometimes the Ravens just aren't good enough. But the Ravens don't fall flat. The Ravens don't just fall apart. That is out of character for the Ravens. Similarly, when I think of the Steelers' character, they fight. They fight in AFC North games. Now,
Unfortunately
occasionally,
true.
they're completely, totally flat.
What's our character?
F the Ravens, F the Steelers. Can we say that?
Yes.
You just did.
Do you say that about the Bengals, or you don't say that about the Bengals?
No, I'm a Bengals fan. Why would I say that about the Bengals?
All right, fair.
Now, so if the Ravens don't quit,
the Browns are trying. Jay, I think that's a really good point. I think the Browns are really trying to forge their character and show who they are.
Right, because we don't know.
And I think that what they did Sunday is the character they're trying to shuck.
Yes.
They're trying to shuck that same old Browns.
Yeah.
And they sadly embraced it. Hopefully that's a one-off. Aditi, thank you very much.
Thanks, Aditi.
Enjoy the game, and
My pleasure, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Who am I going to see tonight? Who's going to be on the field?
I'll be there. I'll be in the press box.
Yeah, I always watch from the comfort of home. It's too good to watch at home.
We're doing our post-game show tonight. Everybody check it out. 2-minute warning tonight. Mikey McNuggets, me, and Jeff Lloyd will be on tonight at the 2-minute warning. Hopefully Mikey McNuggets won't jinx the game tonight.
Yeah, no calling it until it's until it's official.
Over. I promise.
No
I will
more
not make
Dewey
any
defeats
premature
Truman.
decisions.
Thanks, Aditi.
Thanks, Aditi.
Bye, guys. Have fun.
I think that her point